Vayivoser Yaakov levado. Yaakov finds himself alone at night, the evening before he's about to meet Esav. Vayeovek ish imo ad alos hashachar. And the Pasuk says to us that an ish, an anonymous man, which Chazal say was a malach, started fighting with him. Vayeovek ish imo was grappling with him and struggling with him all throughout the night, ad alos hashachar, until daybreak. What do we make of this particular powerful and significant moment in Yaakov's life? Turns out to be a pivotal moment, a turning point in his life, as I will explain. But what's interesting here is the word Vayeovek ish imo has got lots of different layers of meaning to it. There's a Gemara in Chulin Daf Tzadi Aleph, which says, Melamed teaches us, Sheher lo avak, that Yeovek means, it comes from the word dust, that they were struggling on the ground, and the dust that was generated by their fight went, says the Gemara, Vayeovek ish imo, Melamed shehelu avak margalosom ad kisei hakovod. That the dust went up to the kisei hakovod. This is a midrashic metaphor, meaning that there was something about this struggle of ultimate spiritual significance. Until the Kisei HaKavod, to the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this was no ordinary confrontation. And what was so amazing about this? So we'll see that actually they fought with each other, and it was a stalemate. There are all sorts of different details of this story, but I want to focus on one of them particularly, that at the end, as day is about to start, the Malach says, it's time for me to go, and Yaakov says, Lo ashalechacha ki im beirachtani. I won't let you go until you give me a bracha. Now this is an extraordinary idea on lots of different levels. First of all, we generally don't ask for brachas from malachim, only from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So bracha here doesn't mean bracha in the sense of a divine blessing, but it means in some sense that this malach had information. And according to Chazal, this malach was the representative of Esav. And interestingly, the Mefarshim here bring down the Medrash, where the malach representing Esav is referred to as Samael, Samach Mem Aleph, Samael. And Samael was the malach of Esav, and Yaakov is able to fight with him in such a way that the malach is unable to conquer him and beat him down. And this is a moment when the malach says to him something of eternal significance. He says to him, I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give you another name. Shimcha Yaakov, that no longer will you be called Yaakov, ki im Yisrael yeh shemecha. Now it's interesting, this happens twice in this week's parsha, right? Once with the malach, and once later on, 2 chapters later, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, in a prophecy, comes and changes Yaakov's name in this way. But there are lots of interesting things about this, and that is that, in actual fact, Yaakov doesn't have a name change. The Gemara in Brachas Daf Yud Gimel makes it quite clear that Avraham has a name change from Avram to Avraham, and once he's called Avraham, that's it. Avram is now history. And that's because, say the Mefarshim, that Avram went through a certain type of geirus. He was in the Gior changes his name permanently. But Yaakov doesn't go through geirus. Yaakov is just given another dimension to his identity. He remains Yaakov. He remains Yaakov, and we remain the children of Yaakov throughout history, right? So much so that at Matan Torah, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Kos somar lebeis Yaakov v'tagid lebnei Yisrael. So Klal Yisrael are given both these two descriptions, both Beis Yaakov and Bnei Yisrael. So Yaakov and Yisrael work together. And one of the very interesting themes, which I haven't really got time to deal with at the moment, is to look through the whole of the Chumash and see when are we described as Yaakov, when are we described as Yisrael, because that's a very fascinating subject. The Malbim deals with it, the Hamikdava deals with it, that generally speaking, Yaakov is the powerful description of Yaakov Avinu as the founding father of Klal Yisrael, and who has invested within us the most important strengths of one sort or another. And then Yisrael is a vision. Yisrael is the spiritual ultimate vision of the destiny of the Jewish people. And this is because every morning we daven Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Right, we use Yaakov as the working, so to speak, name of Yaakov Avinu, but Yisrael means something special. What does Yisrael actually mean? That's what I want to look at for a few moments. What do we understand of this word Yisrael? Yisrael is such a pivotal word, arguably one of the most, if not the most important word in the whole Chumash, and it's in Parshas Vayishlach that we hear the name Yisrael for the first time, and that changes the history of the Jewish people. From now on, we are Bnei Yisrael. And what does Yisrael actually mean? So let's just have a look at three different aspects of the name Yisrael, all of which are referred to in one way or another in the Kli Yakar here, on the commentary on the Pasuk, but also used by other Mepharshim as well. So the first one he says is very interesting. He says Yisrael comes from the Hebrew word Shin Vav Resh, which means in biblical Hebrew to see a vision, to see something clearly in your mind's eye, to be able to see. Well, Bilam, for example, says Erenu v'lo ata, Ashurenu v'lo koro. Bilam has a nevuah of Yemos HaMashiach, of the ultimate, the Geula Acharona, and he says, I can see it, but it's not now. Ashurenu, I have this vision of it, v'lo koro, it won't be soon, but it will come eventually. So he says Yisrael comes to mean that the people who are able to see, spiritually see, intellectually and spiritually see Ale, to see the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, to see the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, to see the miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does on Nisecha Sheb'chol Yom Yimono, every day and every moment, the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu guides us and protects us, to be able to see that. So most people are blind to that. And that's really what the Kli Yakar says in another place, which is, that's why the Malach of Esav is called Samael. Samael, Samach Mem Aleph, is the Hebrew name for a sumo, as a blind man. That the blindness is a spiritual blindness, that unable to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, and thinking that this world is really just run by nature and by chance and by other political or military forces, without seeing the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the first meaning of Yisrael is that ability to see the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu all around us, and that's what Yisrael means. The second meaning of Yisrael comes from the word Yashar El. The Yashar means honesty and integrity and having a moral code. Yisrael means having a moral code which is based not on the changes of human nature and the different ideas of moral ethics and ethical concepts, but it is based on the Dvar Hashem. Yashar El means our moral code is based on the Dvar Hashem, is based on the Torah, and it's immovable and it is eternal. And this is one of the important features going forward of Klal Yisrael. And the third idea comes from the word Sar, that Sar means a prince, that Yisrael means that you have been given princely powers. You've been given princely powers to rule over the spiritual world and to oppose your enemies in a princely way and a direct way, and to overcome, as the Pasuk says, Ki soriso im Elokim va'anoshim v'tuchal, that you're able to confront your enemies and overcome them directly and powerfully, and that is the third parish of the word Yisrael. All these three are very, very fascinating dimensions of the Jewish people. But going forward, that's the bracha that comes out of Parshas Vayishlach, that Klal Yisrael are redefined. It's not a name change. We will constantly be Yaakov, and Yaakov is the foundations of the Jewish people, but Yisrael is the royalty, is the way that Klal Yisrael are given special spiritual powers to be able to resist and to be able to overcome all opposition. And this is something truly remarkable. What is also interesting to see is that Yaakov, having overcome Lavan and having overcome Esav, and now having overcome this Malach, he says this interesting pasuk. What he's saying really here is, I think, very profound and maybe relevant to what Klal Yisrael are going through in Israel today as well. And that is, it's not sufficient to overcome the enemy. To overcome the enemy is important in terms of survival and stability. It's extremely important to be able to overcome our enemies. And Baruch Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us Medinas Yisrael and Tzahal and enabled us to overcome our enemies in a most amazing way. And the Syrian army that attacked us in 67 and in 73 has now been completely obliterated. It's disappeared in a puff of smoke within 48 hours. Both the soldiers and the military hardware seems to have disappeared, been completely destroyed. And so Baruch Hashem, that is a special gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be able to overcome our enemies. But the Yaakov Avinu is saying, Lo ashalech elokim be'erakta. It's not enough to overcome our enemies. We have to find a bracha. We have to find something positive in this. We have to come out of this feeling, okay, we're not just stronger than you, and we've outwitted you, or outfought you, or whatever it is, but we actually received a bracha. And the bracha is Yisrael. Bracha is to be able to see the Yad Hashem, and not to be influenced by Samuel, the blindness that the Malach of Esav tries to inflict upon us, and to be given the sense of being a Sar, having that feeling, this feeling of privilege, of being able to do mitzvahs, and live a life of Avodas Hashem. That is the bracha of the name Yisrael. And we were given this bracha, and going forward, we've got Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael, and Baruch Hashem in our generation, Medinas Yisrael, and all of them blessed by the name Yisrael. Just by the way, this Malach that gave this name Yisrael to Yaakov Avinu, all those thousands of years ago, I believe that Malach appeared again in the 20th century, because there was a debate, you may not know this, that in 1948, 2 days before the declaration of independence of the State of Israel, they were still discussing, what are we going to call this what are we going to call this new place? In the English documentation, it was always referred to as a Jewish homeland. But what's going to be the name of the state? And many people wanted it to be called Yehuda, and some people wanted to give it other name connected to the word Ivri. But Ben Gurion said, no, it has to be the name Yisrael. And I believe this Malach came and sat on the shoulder of Ben Gurion and whispered into his ear, Yisrael. That Yisrael gives us this inspiration. That Bez Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give us not only the power to overcome all our enemies, but to do it in a princely way. Not just a military way, but to do it without losing any of our ruchnius, without losing any of our spiritual focus. And in that way, this bracha is something which guides us and protects us in our generation as well. V'chein yehi ratzon.